There was a moment, you probably remember it clearly, and when your kid told you everything. What happened at school, who said what at lunch, what they were worried about, what made them laugh. They talked and you listened and it felt easy. And then somewhere between then and now, the talking stopped, not all at once, gradually. One-word answers replaced full sentences. Shrugs replaced stories. The car ride home from school, which used to be 10 minutes of nonstop conversation, became silence with background music. And you started to wonder, what did I do? When did I lose them? And is this permanent? If that is where you are right now, I want you to stay with me. Because what I'm going to share with you today does not come from a place of blame. It comes from research, and it will almost certainly change the way you understand what is happening between you and your teenager. Let's start with something that no one tells parents, and that most parents get completely wrong. When your teenager stops talking to you, the most common interpretation is, they don't trust me anymore. They don't need me. They're pulling away because something is broken between us. But research tells a very different story. In 2022, neuroscientists at Stanford University published a study in the Journal of Neuroscience using brain imaging to examine how teenagers process voices, specifically their mother's voice compared to unfamiliar voices. What they found was extraordinary. In young children, the brain's reward system lights up most strongly in response to the mother's voice. It's wired that way. A small child's brain is literally designed to find their parent's voice more meaningful, more rewarding, and more attention-grabbing than any other sound in the world. Around age 13, that switches. The teenage brain begins to respond more strongly to voices it doesn't recognize, peers, strangers, new people, than to the voice of the parent. The lead researcher, Dr. Daniel Abrams, put it plainly, when teens appear to stop listening to their parents, it is because their brains are wired to pay more attention to voices outside the home. This is not rejection. This is neurobiology. The brain is doing exactly what it is supposed to do to prepare your teenager for adult life, expanding their social world beyond the family, one neural shift at a time. So the silence you are experiencing, it started in your teenager's brain years before either of you noticed it. Now, understanding the neuroscience is the beginning, but it doesn't explain everything, because the brain shift I just described is universal. Every teenager goes through it, but not every teenager stops talking to their parents completely. Some keep sharing, some go almost entirely quiet. What makes the difference? According to decades of research in adolescent psychology, including the work of Loes Keisers and her colleagues, whose longitudinal studies track teenagers and their parents over multiple years, the single most powerful predictor of whether a teenager keeps talking to their parents is something called emotional safety, not rules, not structure, not how strict or lenient a parent is. Emotional safety. What that means in practice is this. Teenagers do a calculation every time they consider sharing something with a parent. It happens fast, often unconsciously. The question they are asking is not, do I love my parents? The question is, what will happen if I tell them this? And if past experience has taught them that what happens is a lecture, a dismissal, an overreaction, a look of disappointment, an interrogation, they stop asking the question. They already know the answer. And they go quiet. Qualitative research on parent-teen communication has found consistently that teenagers stop sharing when previous attempts to share led to being dismissed, being blamed, being turned into a teaching moment they didn't ask for, or watching their parent become so visibly distressed that the teenager ended up managing the parent's feelings instead of their own. None of that means you are a bad parent. It means you are a human parent, but it is worth sitting with. Here is the part that I think is hardest for most parents to hear. The silence is often not a sign that your teenager doesn't want to talk to you. It is often a sign that they have learned that talking to you comes with a cost they are not willing to pay right now. Think about the last few times your teenager did try to tell you something. Maybe it was something small, a problem at school, a falling out with a friend, something that confused or upset them. What happened next? Did you listen until they were finished without interrupting? Or did you start problem solving before they got to the end? Did you ask them how they felt? Or did you tell them how you would have handled it? Did you let the conversation be about them? Or did it gradually, almost imperceptibly, become about your worry, your experience, your advice? Research consistently shows that adolescents are significantly less likely to disclose to parents who validate their emotions and Significantly more likely to go silent with parents whose own distress about a situation becomes the dominant emotional force in the conversation. In other words, when a teenager shares something difficult and the parent becomes visibly anxious or upset, the teenager learns that sharing difficult things means taking care of their parent. And at 16, that is too much to carry. So they stop bringing the difficult things, and then, slowly, they stop bringing the easy things too. There is something else operating here that is worth naming directly, and it has to do with autonomy. One of the most robust findings across decades of adolescent research is this: the more a teenager feels controlled, monitored, or interrogated by their parents, the less they voluntarily share. This sounds backward. Parents who ask more questions, check more, push harder for information, they must end up knowing more about their teenager's life, right? Actually, no. Research by Kazers and colleagues found the opposite. When adolescents perceive their parents as intrusive, not protective, but intrusive, they don't share more, they share less. And they don't just share less honestly. They begin to actively manage information, omitting, deflecting, and in some cases lying, not out of defiance, but out of a need to protect the one domain they feel they actually own, their inner life. The teenage years are a time when your child is working out who they are outside of you. They need to have thoughts you don't know about, feelings they haven't processed yet, experiences they are making sense of on their own terms. That privacy is not a wall between you. It is how they are learning to be a person. The paradox is real. The tighter you hold, the less they share. The more space you give, the more they return to it voluntarily. So what do you actually do? Because I don't want to leave you with a science lesson and nothing to take home. The first shift is the hardest and also the most important. You have to change what you are optimizing for in your conversations with your teenager. Most parents, when communication is breaking down, optimize for information. They want to know what's happening, who their teenager is with, what they are feeling, whether they are okay, and so they ask, and ask again. And the teenager, who registers this as surveillance rather than interest, retreats further. What actually opens the conversation is optimizing for connection instead of information. The goal is not to extract. The goal is to be present in a way that makes your teenager feel that being around you is safe, comfortable, low stakes. Practically, this means resisting the reflex to fill silence with questions. It means sitting next to them while they watch something they like, without needing to talk. It means offering your presence without a price attached to it. The second shift is about your response when they do share. This is where the relationship is either built or eroded, not in the big conversations, but in the small ones. When your teenager mentions something even offhandedly, with a friend drama, something that annoyed them, something they're not sure about, your response in the next 10 seconds determines whether they will bring you the next thing or file you away as someone who reacts instead of listens. The single most protective response, backed consistently by research, is to reflect before you respond. Not fix, not advise, not reassure. Just show them that what they said landed. That sounds really frustrating. I get why you'd feel that way. Full stop. No follow-up lecture. No pivot to what they should do differently. It sounds small. It is not small. A teenager who feels genuinely heard by their parent will come back. Not every time, not immediately, but they will come back. The third shift is about the conditions. Research on adolescent disclosure has found that teenagers are much more likely to open up in indirect settings, side by side, not face to face. The car is one of the most powerful communication spaces a parent and teenager share. Precisely because eye contact is not required and there is a defined endpoint. Neither person is trapped. There is no pressure. And in that low pressure space, things get said that would never come out across a dinner table. Use the car. Use the walk. Use the quiet moments that have no agenda. I want to close with something I think matters more than anything else in this video. Your teenager going quiet is painful. It can feel like a loss, and in some ways, it is a loss of the particular closeness that belonged to an earlier stage. But it is not the end of your relationship. It is a transition. What your teenager needs to discover over months and years is that you are safe, not perfect, not endlessly patient, not without opinions or reactions, but fundamentally safe. A person they can come back to when things get hard, when the peer world stops making sense, when they need someone who has known them their whole life. That discovery does not happen through a single conversation. It happens through dozens of small moments where you choose to listen instead of fix, to stay instead of push, to be present without demanding that they meet you there immediately. Your teenager is not gone. They are building the version of themselves that will one day choose to talk to you as an adult, choosing to talk to another adult. That is a relationship worth waiting for, and you build it now in the silence by staying. If this video helped you see your teenager a little differently today, share it with a parent who needs to hear it, and leave a comment. What is the moment you remember when the conversation started to change? I would love to hear your story. See you in the next one.